there could be some arguments in student class that we maybe don't want to pass as the constructor parameters. For example, this student class may contain other types like the mobile number of the student, for example, string mobile, or maybe the email address of this student, so string email. But I don't want to pass this argument as the constructor. But whenever you create a constructor as a named constructor or whenever you declare the properties or non-null properties, then you must have to provide these properties or include these properties in the constructor. But like I said, I don't want to provide this information like mobile number or email address to the constructor, because I think that to initialize a student, the name, ID, and department, these are the mandatory properties, but I don't want to provide the other properties like mobile and email. I just want to make them optional. So what you can do is you can actually put this argument in the constructor list as an optional argument, just like this one. So here this dot mobile and provide a default value, and also this dot email and also provide a default value, and then it will actually work. Email, that would be email, so L. So this will in this way we can avoid the error, and still we can pass 3 mandatory arguments, and if we want, then we can provide the email and mobile just typing the named arguments. But I don't want to even include this in the constructor list. Just I was talking about that I don't want to include this in the constructor but in this situation we can actually make these properties nullable. So if I make this nullable just like that, you will see that now the errors are gone, and now we cannot pass mobile and email through constructor. The only way now to assign the mobile and email is through the reference. So just like I provided a different department name for S1, we can also provide an email address and mobile number for S1, like this one, for example, john@gmail.com, and also a mobile number for John, that will be something like that. So it is very common to make some properties nullable, and we do that whenever we think that these properties should be optional or not necessary, like this one. So now let's talk about another constructor that we can define in our Dart classes, and that is called the named constructor. So this constructor doesn't have a name, so this is like a default constructor. Just after the class name we have the constructor parameter list, but sometimes we define some constructor with a name. For example, I can define a constructor something like that, student, then dot, then I will provide a name, for example, contact, and inside this contact I will provide maybe the mobile number and email address. So this dot mobile and this dot email. So now this student class have 2 constructors, and whenever we try to create a new reference or new object of a student like this one, so student maybe S5 equals, now we can either call student.contact or we can call the default constructor or the main constructor. But if you try to add a named constructor in the class, you see that there is a problem. The problem is simply because this constructor requires that we also provide the name, ID, and department as well, because these properties are not nullable, and these properties must have to be initialized through the constructor. So though we defined a constructor with a name with the idea in mind that with this constructor, this contact constructor, we will only pass the properties that are related to contact, because mobile address and mobile number and email address actually represents contact information of a student. So in such situation where I just want to create an object of a student with the contact information, we will simply call this contact constructor, not the main constructor. But in this case, the necessary thing that we must do is we can only use, or we can only define a name constructor only if and only if all the properties of a class is optional or nullable. So if I now turn every properties nullable, just like this, then I think the error will be gone, because now this class, all the properties are nullable. So whether we provide the information through the constructor, or even we don't have to provide any information in the constructor. So now whenever though we defined a constructor like this one, I must have to provide the argument for this constructor. But now if I provide student dot contact and call this constructor, and now here I will only have to provide the mobile number or email address, and also I can make this optional and required maybe. So maybe this could be or maybe I don't have to, because these are nullable, right? So now I am passing simply mobile, just a mobile number, and now I'm passing an email address just like this one. Okay, now you have to provide an email address over here. So all I'm trying to say is we can actually define a constructor with a name, and this constructor doesn't have a name. And in the name constructor, we can provide arguments that are specific to the name of the constructor. And for example, let's say that we have lots of student objects we got from by querying a database query, and we got a list of a student, but I don't want to create the object of the student, or I'm only interested to see the contact information of the student. So instead of calling this constructor, I can always call this constructor and provide the mobile and email. And this S5, in case of this instance, the only information that we provided is mobile and email. The other information, if we try to access the other information like name, ID, and department with S5, if I try to print the name of S5, it will be null, because we didn't provide any information for name, ID, and department. So the thumb up rule is, if you want to define a name constructor, it is necessary that all the properties of that class should be nullable. And there are lots of examples or widget classes in Flutter where we have several constructors for a class. For example, to show an image, we have a widget or class in Flutter called image, and to load the image from different sources, we have different constructors. For example, if I want to load an image from network, we will call the .network constructor. If we want to load the image from asset, we call the asset constructor. If we want to load the image from file, we call the file constructor. Also, we have the memory constructor. So these constructors are created based on the source of that image, and this is very handy, because if I want to load the image from memory, then maybe I just need to pass the corresponding attributes that is linked to memory source. I don't want to provide the other arguments, because that are not mandatory this time.